Soupy.
Fly ball, deep right field. Back is Spencer at the one and track at the wall. It's gone!
Subscribe to Selby is Godcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Unbelievable.
Hey, Zach. Did you hear the big news?
No.
Apparently, Brian Reynolds' no trade list has been revealed, and the Guardians aren't on it.
Oh,
So, things are looking up.
4 years later, maybe they can land him.
Because, there's no foregone conclusions on anyone ever saying okay to their no trade clause. So, I guess things could always be worse. You could have Brian Reynolds telling you no. Unlike your play on the field telling you no, screaming at you no, the fans screaming at you no, and Bo Naylor screaming no when asked if he could block a pitch in the dirt to help salvage their season. I think that's probably even going too far because, Zach, I think things have been set in motion long before them dropping 10 in a row, though that was just kind of the culmination of where we're at today.
I got nothing.
Oh, stop. Stop.
I got nothing. I mean, I what have we not covered yet? What have we not talked about? What have we not forecast? What have we not yelled about? What's left? I mean, what? Are we shocked by this? Is this surprising? Have you looked at the lineups they've been trotting out there, and then you're looking at how they've scored 15 total runs in this 10-game losing streak, 6 of them in one inning, and your mind is blown? How can they not be scoring more runs? No.
It does, it feels like this is the chance to yell and scream, and we probably will today. Largely because it all comes together in one of the most epic defeats that I think I've seen. I mean, we reference The Office all the time on this show. And you ever watch that show and just feel that secondhand embarrassment as you're seeing Michael Scott do something? You put your head in your hands and you cannot believe what he's doing and you feel embarrassed watching the situation. That was me watching the Guardians yesterday. I was embarrassed on their behalf because it's one thing to just be as brutal offensively as they've been and just neglect to make any changes or to ever say that things are awry or hold people accountable and say, well, things will get better. Everything will be okay.
They are the this is fine dog.
But to lose in that fashion and then not only blow the save, which is largely because Bo Naylor couldn't block a ball that really anybody should have. I don't want to hear from Stephen Vogt after the game. This is one of the most tough balls to block. But you're a major league catcher. Bo Naylor would tell you he needs to catch that. We're not talking about difficult plays. But that's just the excuse. That's just one of the symptoms of what is the main overall overarching narrative that we've been discussing for weeks and really going back to the offseason.
What do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about the specifics of the losing streak? Do you want to talk about the complete and utter offensive ineptitude? Do you want to talk about the manager's decisions? Do you want to talk about the front office and their failures over the last, 8 months, 3 years? Do you want to talk about ownership? Where everything's tied together, everyone's to blame. Do you want to talk about the hitting coach? I mean, what do you zero in on here? Does this not feel like an inflection point organizationally?
Yeah, sure.
It does to us, but I don't think it does to them.
And that's
because otherwise they never would have let it get to this point.
That's kind of what I want to talk about today, because this is not about the 10-game losing streak. I mean, every team, even good ones, go through stretches where they're bad. That we're not looking at this and going, well, the season's over because of this 10-game losing streak. I mean, again, that's just a symptom of where they're at, where they've been, and the decisions they've made to get to this point. The fact that we've screamed for years And we look for little glimpses of hope of hitter development, but yet at the end of the day, they're still not developing the hitters. And it's like, it's this funk that hangs over my head that even limits my excitement for guys like C.J. Kafis and Chase DeLauder and Juan Brito and the next crop of guys that are going to come up here, because this team has proven they cannot consistently develop their young hitters. Now, that's not to say that every single one that comes through goes somewhere else and has success, but there are guys that do go elsewhere and have success. Some of that probably just because they get the opportunity and they age and they get more acclimated. And here in Cleveland, because they have so many younger players that they're counting on at all times, if you're not the guy, they move on to the next guy that could be the guy, as opposed to like a guy like Ernie Clement, who could just settle into being an okay guy and just gets the opportunities elsewhere until he finally actually becomes a pretty useful, if not pretty good, major league player. Zach, this is, again, going far beyond just the disappointment or just one loss that you feel in the moment that happens with your closer on the mound after you finally scratch across a run and then they score on a ball in the dirt that needs to be caught, or Cade Smith comes in later and gives up multiple home runs, and this is a guy that never does that in the regular season. Here's two in the same outing. It's more than just this. It's all about the big zooming out, big picture view that has put them into this position that leads us all to that secondhand embarrassment.
A 656 team OPS that ranks 28th in baseball, ahead of only the Pirates and the White Sox. They have two All-Stars, and they're both hitters. It's kind of twisted when you think about it. I was just running some numbers, and so the team slash line is 224, 295, 361. It's a different time, right? This isn't the 90s. But I was just like, I got to know, what was the 95 team slash line? And I know the 99 team was better, but for the sake of the argument I'm about to make, let's look at 95. 291, 361, 479. And that team, many nights, had Jim Thome and Manny Ramirez hitting 6th and 7th, and this team has Jonathan Rodriguez and Will Wilson doing that. It's a different sport. It's a different league. It's a different time. This is the worst offense this team has fielded since 1991. That was a year they lost 105 games. They scored the fewest runs in baseball. They moved the fences back at Municipal Stadium, and I remember talking to Sandy Alomar about it years ago, and he called it a graveyard. That team they played 82 home games that year. They hit 22 home runs. This is the company you're keeping. The most dreadful team in franchise history, the White Sox, the Pirates. This is you. And you don't become that just with, a couple guys just aren't performing up to expectations. No, that's systemic. That takes like effort to be that bad. If you remove the two All-Stars from the equation, the rest of the team is hitting 202, 276, 334. That's like a pretty good hitting pitcher. That's like Carlos Zambrano. That's like Mike Hampton. That's the average of all of your hitters if you take out the two All-Stars.
I don't need to laugh at that.
That's a 610 OPS. The qualified hitter in baseball with an OPS closest to that is Ozzie Albies of the Atlanta Braves, whose OPS ranks 150th out of 157 qualified hitters. So he is the 8th worst qualified hitter in baseball. And his OPS is the average of all of your hitters except for Juan Ramirez. 7 out of 9 spots in your lineup are occupied by someone equal to the 8th worst hitter in baseball. So that doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen by failure of just one part of the organization. Everyone's to blame. The players, the manager, the front office, ownership. And the question now is there accountability? That's the thing is, I think fans are frustrated because they hear after games Stephen Vogt night after night, or Chris Antonetti when he's available, and everybody's just saying, we got to stay the course. This isn't who we are. We're playing well. We're just, think these rough times happen. And, you feel like you're just, it's almost condescending, isn't it? Like,
That's exactly right.
yeah.
I love that we're on the same page here because I just jotted down it's like a stream of consciousness as it came to my mind last night and I was preparing for today's show. I wrote down, at times, this team insults the intelligence of their fans. It's an insult. Now, I understand a manager, especially with Stephen Vogt here, who's now in his second year, maybe he doesn't feel like he has quite the leeway to be able to lean into his players the way that a veteran manager would, with lots of, I've got multiple Manager of the Year awards and I've got all these playoff wins and I've got this and that. So I feel like at times I can carry weight by knowing how to distribute my criticism. And maybe Stephen Vogt hasn't figured that out yet. And I understand you can't go in there every single night and flip tables, and people stop responding to that. And as Terry Francona used to say all the time, makes him feel good. But at the end of the day, you're still left with the same problems. Like, we could yell about what Stephen Vogt said after the game, but that doesn't change what's actually happening here or where the real problems lie. And that just sort of adds to the frustration. That is the insulting of the intelligence. We can see this offense, and you can tell us it is going to be better or this is not who we are, but over half the year has proven this is who you are. So you at some point, you got to stop saying that, because it echoes with it's a big nothing. No one cares what you're saying, and as much as throwing stuff, people will stop responding to that. You think just saying the same thing about we're going to be better and we're going to play guards ball, that stuff rings hollow for everybody as well.
I think that fans want to see that you care and you're as passionate as they are, right? And because if not, then that's when apathy sets in. And boy, are they on the way to... It's July 7th, right? Like, there's a lot of summer left. There's a lot of fun things you can do in the summer, and watching a baseball team score 1.5 runs per game is not one of them. So I understand that the organization operates in a way where they always say it, right? Like, well, we can't just act on emotion. We can't make decisions based on what the fans want, and it's like, no, but you seriously are watching this and you're not going to make any changes? You're going to continue to trot out the same people in the same feudal positions? And it's not just the 10-game losing streak. TJ, we've been yelling about this stuff since before because we saw the symptoms. And it's just that this is reminiscent of 2012, is it not? That team felt like a fake pseudo contender for a little while. They were hovering around 500. You had the good vibes from 2011 when they came out of nowhere and started 30-15, and it was like, oh, maybe they're building something here. And they traded for Ubaldo Jimenez, and it was like, okay, I guess you've got something you're building. And then 2012, they're hanging around 500, and it didn't feel like they were playing that great. You also had like Shelly Duncan hitting fourth a lot of days. And then the bottom fell out, and it wasn't shocking. Like 5-24 in August was shocking, but playing poorly was not shocking. And by the end of that, we're watching Vinny Rottino and Jared Head and Thomas Neal and Russ Kanzler. And it's like, it happens fast, doesn't it? And I don't know. We were just watching Jonathan Rodriguez and Will Wilson and Austin Hedges and Angel Martinez and Brian Rocchio in the same lineup. So none of this is shocking. I think what's shocking is how they let it get to this point so quickly. I'm sick of referencing the fact that they were 3 wins away from the World Series 8 months ago, but it needs to be referenced because I don't think they quite understand what they've done here because no one is accountable. And that's the thing. I mean, we never hear from ownership. I know ownership likes to take a rosy approach to things and think that things will be okay. And a lot of times, we give this organization the benefit of the doubt and they figure it out and they get by with less talent maybe than other teams do. But that doesn't mean they get a pass for this. And
no.
Have we ever heard, is Paul Dolan mad? Does anybody know? Is anybody going to be held accountable?
I'm okay. I'm okay with taking a rosier outlook. I try to often I will think of things in a more positive light because I think that's just a better way to go through life than to just anticipate the cynical aspect and everything's going to go wrong at all times. And to some degree, I can appreciate that. But again, you can't insult your own intelligence or the intelligence of people that are watching this and just say that it's okay. It was even raised in our Discord, and this was not a call for firing people, but it was, does anybody ever worry about, does Chris Antonetti ever wake up worried that he's going to lose his job? Or anybody in that front office ever truly worried about it? You know, the last time we're truly talking about this is the stretch you referenced with Manny Acta, who didn't survive that 5-24. I'm, again, not suggesting that people need to be fired, but I would certainly hope that you do wonder at the end of the day, if I'm not doing my job, there is a chance that I could be replaced. I'm not sure that anybody in this front office ever fears that to any sort of degree. And I think I'm not saying there were probably times that like Dan Gilbert went way too far with that, and people were worried when they shouldn't even have been worried about that. And I think that can have a negative pressure on people too afraid to make a mistake, and you're going to step in it, and then that cripples your ability to make good decisions. But I think there needs to be at least a little bit of that accountability overhead. You could make the case that maybe that happens behind the scenes. I don't have any evidence of that. I don't have any actions that show that that's the case.
Who has lost their job? Ty Van Berkeley was here for 100 years.
I mean, they make changes because there's been changes in the leadership in the dugout. And not because you let Tito go. It's because he didn't know if he wanted to even manage anymore. And you couldn't just wait around anymore. So you had to make that call, which that's fine. But no one really truly does worry about their jobs at the end of the day from a people that actually matter standpoint.
It's a very collaborative culture. I think that has bore a lot of fruit. I think it spearheaded the development of the pitching factory because you finally had scouts and player development experts collaborating on things and understanding what the other department was looking for and could work with. And it did a lot of good and continues to do a lot of good. And you've had other organizations try to emulate it, and they deserve all the credit in the world for what they've been able to do on the pitching side. On the hitting side, they've tried different things. It hasn't worked. They've had opportunities to go outside the organization and get a new voice. They did it with Chris Valaika. I give them credit for that. But they had another opportunity when Valaika joined Francona in Cincinnati. Go find somebody who's been part of the Dodgers operation, who's been part of the Rays operation. Bring somebody in who can overhaul your hitting development approach so that we're not still sitting here when you and I are completely gray and wrinkly and the World Series droughts in triple digits and talking about how they still haven't had a competent center fielder and right fielder since Shin-Soo Choo and Grady Sizemore. Like, these aren't new problems. That's the thing. And I think there's something to be said about, being insulated and the collaborative culture and not ever hearing external voices who can come in and be like, actually, like, this is what worked in this place and maybe you should try this out. There's also something to be said about the whole organizational approach of, it's kind of what Jerry DiPoto said and got criticized for, but when he said, the goal is to win 54% of our games every year and get into the playoffs and hope we catch fire at the right time. And like, there's some truth to that. That's how you counterbalance the massive payrolls of the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees, et cetera. But also, like, how often do we talk about timing and capitalizing on the moments you're there? And when you're right there with the Dodgers and the Mets and the Yankees in the league championship series, that is when you get uncomfortable, and that's when you go for it. And that's when
Zach, they don't look at it that way.
I understand, but my point is they never change anything. They never consider, should we maybe like adapt the way we operate? I know we had this master plan for Chase DeLauder where we're going to gradually build him up, and we want him to do this in AAA so it's a controlled environment. So if his body's sore after playing back-to-back, we don't feel obligated to force him out there again like we would if he was in the major leagues. There's no adjustments made. Like, God forbid you have to give him an extra day off in the big leagues. God forbid you have to put him on the injured list or send him back to AAA or something like that. But you're watching, like, they're not contending in 2025. They're not making decisions that would lead to that. Clearly, look at the lineup. They tried it out all weekend, right? Or all month or all season. But they're also not making decisions that would help them in the future either. And they're not making the decisions that would help both the immediate, DeLauder, Manzardo playing more, Kafis, whoever. Those decisions would help you now and later. They're not doing any of that. So I just feel like there is this rigidity and this refusal to entertain thoughts that aren't the thoughts they originally had. And it is biting them. And again, you have eroded a honeymoon period faster than I think I've ever seen. Like, it's incredible. You had everything going for you. You were in the ALCS with a team that was an absolute blast to watch, by the way. They delivered, like, we're going to be talking about Jhonkensy Noel's home run for eternity. And they were in first place wire to wire. They had the first pick in the draft. They had more than 2 million in attendance. They had renovations that they were unveiling. Come out and see the terrace, the new terrace hub, and check out this cool new area. Check out the club behind home plate. Check out all this new stuff as you celebrate a team that was on the doorstep of the World Series and has a flourishing farm system. Yeah? How long did that sales pitch last? How long were they able to market that? How long were fans in that honeymoon period? You've got a hornet's nest now. You've completely eroded that. And good luck trying to get that back.
I mean, this goes down, and this is just some recency bias, and how can I just recall this in the moment? But this goes down as one of the most epic bag fails in Cleveland sports history. You had it all. You had it all in position, and you just failed to capitalize on it. And it started way before this bad stretch. And even when this team had a good record, it was already in place. People didn't know if they should believe in this club because they're smart. Fans are smart. They see what this team is, and it is what made it really difficult when we were having fun earlier in the year. And we've said this before. I want the show to be fun, so we are going to try to spin this positive and have fun, especially when the record calls for it. They're winning games. I'm not going to sit here every show and bash them for signing Carlos Santana when it's working okay. But still, like, and this kind of comes to the point that CLE112 was making. If they win 6 of the next 7, what will the attitude be? And by the way, we're streaming on YouTube if you happen to catch this later. Thank you for being here, by the way. Hopefully we can provide whatever therapy you need to get through here. It's not
Who's
about
providing our therapy, TJ?
I always ask that question. It's not about, like, this next stretch. If they say they do, but miracle of all miracles. And God, I was going to have so much fun with the show we were going to have today after they scored a run and they were going to win the game. And I had all these grand plans, throw them in the garbage. Just get rid of them.
Did you just say miracle of all miracles?
The miracle of all miracles. That was what we were going to have fun with. That was the fun we were going to have today. They ruined it for you. Winning 6 of 7 doesn't change anything from this point. It's just turning things around slightly. Again, these are just small symptoms of the bigger problem. Their inability to put back-to-back winning seasons together. I am so glad you brought the win 53, 54, 55% of your games every single year. Give yourself a shot. And yeah, I mean, I think mathematically, you're right. With the way that the playoffs are in baseball, give yourself as many bites at that apple as you possibly can. There's a lot of truth here. And I think if you were just looking at this from not even a human standpoint, just a numbers standpoint, that's a smart way to go about it. This game isn't, like, you have to step outside. What do the numbers say at all moments? Because this is still a sport played by humans, watched by humans, enjoyed by humans. There's still a degree of fandom here that is supposed to be fun. When you anticipate that your team is going to be good and then they follow that up. You know, I think there's some element here of GMs that have put this thought out there. You know what you do when you consistently say that that's your goal? You never raise expectations enough that you ever need to be held accountable for it. It's a place to create a safe bubble for yourself where you continue to exist because you say, our goal is to just be slightly better than average every single year. And the Guardians have proven that over a long period of time, they are very good at that. But you know what? The name of the game is still go win championships. Put yourself in a position consistently to do it, not 1 year, it all comes together. Then you take a couple of years off. The next year, it all comes together. And then you take a couple of years off. You create this safe bubble for yourself where you never take risks. You never have to go the extra mile. And it creates an environment where your job security is never in question because you're doing what you set out to do. But there's still an importance here to make things fun. This is like sports is, I know it's all about longevity and staying in your role forever. And there's still something here in sports that is supposed to be fun and create a buzz for your team and be ready to take that jump. And sometimes teams get a team like the Orioles where they were supposed to take that jump forward and they're not this year. Some of that is because they didn't make big investments. They spend some money, but they didn't make that big investment to go get what they need. I don't know. You got to create some excitement for yourself here at times. You can't just say that the goal is always to win 54% of your games. It keeps everyone employed. No stakes are ever in play here. No accountability. And guess what? You still have seasons like this, even when you don't plan for them. You still have shit seasons that come up. You can't avoid them because that, as much as you hope things swing positive so that you win 57% of your games, they're going to swing the other way too. So it's just become this safe environment that no one wants to take any risks. And yeah, they're a team in a small market that can't spend like the big boys, but that means you got to develop better. That means you got to make the smarter decisions. And right now, on the position player side, they are not developing. They're not holding on to whoever they need to hold on to. They're making bad choices here, and they're not getting the most out of the talent that they're creating for themselves. And then turning around and not ever trading it when you know they're all not going to work out for guys that are proven that you can push the chips in for the next few years and know that this is going to be your best shot at winning a championship. God, Zach, you say it all the time. When's your best shot to win a championship? They will never answer that question. They never want to be held accountable for saying this is going to be the year, and if it doesn't work out, guess what happens then? Then you lose your job. This just becomes way too safe. It's way too safe, and no one ever takes risks, and that is maddening.
And that's going to go on that's what will stand out on the Dolan ownership legacy card. That's what people will remember. Like, whoever won a championship without taking some risks? Whoever built a legacy without getting a little uncomfortable? Have you ever imagine reading like a book about a championship season of some team in some sport, and it was just like the most boring read ever. Yeah, never had any adversity, never had to like take a gamble or anything, and they just won the title. You have to cash in on things. Things have to go your way. But you're right. Like it's really strange. Like I don't know. I feel like I'm going to repeat the same points I've made over and over. Like, first of all, we don't know what David Blitzer is going to care about. I think that's an important element here. We don't know what the league's going to look like after 2026 because of what everyone thinks is going to be a work stoppage. So I do wonder like how different things will look in a couple years. And I do wonder how much teams are operating in a way where they're considering the possibility of those changes and that work stoppage, and they're just trying to get ahead of it. That's not an excuse either. I think, I don't know. I can't, and this is even after talking to people in these positions. Like, I can't figure out like what the plan is here. These are lineups that you watch in September for a team that's on its way to 100 losses, not a team that is telling you that everything's going to be okay. And so it's crazy. I'm absolutely flummoxed that they've just done nothing to try to change things. And you know what? To an extent, I understand that the manager needs to say, like, instill confidence in his guys and keep them, first of all, as if the players are listening to his post-game press conferences every night, which I don't think they are. I hope they're not. I don't even want to listen to them. But also, like, I don't know. If I'm a leader in that clubhouse, I kind of want to hear the fire from my manager, even if it's public. Like, aren't things getting stale in the clubhouse? Aren't guys looking around being like, I don't know, like we stink and I don't know how to change it. And no one's mad? Like it's just a rotten situation. And I now you have to turn your attention to the trade deadline and putting yourself in position so that things are on the upswing again next year. But they've shown no urgency to look ahead. They keep looking at the present, but they're not, again, like they're not making the moves that would help them in the present either. So it's like they're just clinging to 2024 and thinking that they're still that team and that things are going to be okay. And
But you know what the problem is? They didn't plan to be good in 2024. I hate them
That's
being able to
correct.
take a victory lap for 2024 when they didn't even plan to be good. And then you go back to 2022, even as recent as the trade deadline, they didn't believe they were a team that were going to get into the playoffs and make a bunch of noise. That's why they didn't make some big, massive move at the trade deadline. At what point are you going to say that this is the year that we think we are actually in a position to go win a title? When are they ever going to say that?
2017.
That is so much BS. They'll never say it. They will never. They're going to go into next year and say, well, we've accumulated all these young pieces and we'll see what happens.
TJ, they've been leaning on that line about, oh, we have a really young roster and like there's going to be bumps in the road. How long can you use that excuse? You were using it in 21 and we said, okay, fine. Just had a run of contention and the round, like you do. You Chang and Bradley Zimmer and Bobby Bradley and Jake Bowers, like fine. You can use that excuse this year. And in 22 they used it too, and then the team got hot in the second half and made the playoffs and it was like, okay, fine. And then in 2023, they're still using that excuse and things didn't pan out. And at least they went and got Josh Bell and Mike Zunino. It didn't work, but fine. And then in 2024, they're a young team that things like you can't use the youth excuse year after year after year. This isn't like coach pitch where the kids stay the same age because it's just second graders and third graders. This is the major leagues. And at some point you have to build towards something and you have to work your way up. And that's fine. If you want to use youth and young players as an excuse, then why the hell is Kyle Manzardo on the bench 3 times a week and Carlos Santana, who's approaching AARP, can't get a day off? What are you trying to win in 2025? Are you trying to win in 2026? Or are you just clinging to 2024 as if you're the same group? That's not what this is.
I told you.
How dare you get me riled up?
It's just about being safe. It's what creates the most safety to always just kind of live in the middle and never take any risks. You imagine if the Indians moving into Jacobs Field, they had started to make these strategic moves. They had traded for prospects. They felt like they were starting to line things up. And then they said, our goal is to win 54% of the games as we move into this new ballpark. We don't need to bring in any free agents. We don't need to sign any, but I know it's a different environment and they could afford free agents at that point compared to maybe where we're at today. But the point still stands. You're making strategic moves to make yourself better, and this team looked at the things that they didn't do well last year and subtracted from it. They needed more offense and subtracted from their offense. Now, I know they used some of it to go get some pitching, sure. But then you never did anything else. You never did anything else to help this offense. And there are some moves in a bubble that I understand what the thought process is. I understand you go get a Paul Sewald because look at the bullpen this year. They felt like they've been one reliever short near the back end of games. So you spend money on that, right? I understand that you think Carlos Santana in a vacuum creates more value because he's the more total package compared to what you had previously. But I mean, let's simplify this. What did you need? More offense. What did you do? Subtract from it. And then go out and get Nolan Jones. And it's like, okay, that's a fun lottery ticket. But they shove him into right field and it's like, God, if he doesn't contribute, we're screwed. These are not the sort of moves that you need to be making after you're that close in the ALCS.
These are they make the moves that you make when you're rebuilding and you have at bats to give Nolan Jones because you have nobody else who you want to see out there. The other thing that is incredible is that they haven't had hitters who are just average or like Manzardo's got a 98 OPS plus. He's been about average. Everybody else has just been completely deplorable. Bo Naylor is 76 OPS plus. Schneemann is down to 87. What a free fall for him. 84 for Arias, 72 for Martinez, 75 for Jones, 46 for Lane Thomas, 27 for Rocchio. John Kenzie Noel was rocking a 9 OPS plus. That means he's 91% below league average. Hedges 28, Will Wilson 34, David Fry 39, Jonathan Rodriguez 25, Will Brennan -4. Someone's gonna have to explain the math on that. So I don't know. I blame the hitting coach, blame the manager, blame the front office, blame the players, blame ownership, blame everybody. Blame Justin Bibb, blame the Haslams, blame Dan Gilbert, blame LeBron James.
One guy's off the hook.
Blame Paul Dolan, blame Larry Dolan, blame James Dolan, blame Charles Dolan.
I will take the one guy off the hook that probably feels the worst about this, Jose Ramirez. The guy that didn't even want to talk about his all-star appearance because he feels like he's not doing enough to help this team win. And the guy that just threw money away because he wanted to stay here. And he basically held the front office hostage and said, either sign me or I'm not letting you out of this room. This guy. And this guy feels worse than anybody about this.
Yeah. Also, people saying because believe me, I get it. They got a gift from the heavens, man. You got a Hall of Fame player to stay with you who never likes to give out big contracts for probably $100 million plus below what he would have gotten in free agency. And you got to keep in mind when that was agreed to. They were coming off 2021 when they lost 86 games and, it didn't look pretty. Or what was 2021? Were they 76 and 86 or am I misremembering? Maybe was that the year they were 80 and 82? I don't remember. They stunk, right? And they were 80 and 82. They went into 2022 with largely the same team. There was hope that Josh Naylor would be healthy and better, and they didn't really know what they had in Stephen Kwan, but they quickly became excited about that. They didn't anticipate Jimenez would finish 6th in the MVP voting. Point is, it's not like things were going great when Ramirez agreed to sign long term. So things going poorly now doesn't mean he's sitting there like, I can't believe this. I thought we were going to win the next 10 World Series. No, when he signed that contract, things were pretty bleak then too. So, if you want to talk about trading Jose Ramirez or asking him for consent to trade him, that's a conversation you can have. But you can't act like this guy had no idea that they'd ever, not be up to par.
I'm to the point where I'm sure we will have more conversations leading up to the trade deadline about Clase, about Kwan. And these are moves that could potentially make sense. But I'm sort of so soured by the way that they've played that I don't even want to give them credit for things that might actually, in the moment, be a smart move. This is me in the offseason. I point to the sign, always trade a reliever for an everyday player, if you can. In the position of the regular season, you see what you need, what you don't need. Maybe you are a team that having that sort of reliever means a lot to you because you're in a lot of close games and you're a lot of winning time and there's a lot of save situations, and that means a lot to a team that's in that position. Whereas the Guardians right now, what does having an elite closer mean to them? And so just looking at that, there's a lot of truth here that maybe you should trade a guy like that, especially if you can go get everyday pieces. But what belief do I have that if they're going to trade for prospects, they're going to be any good? They're going to be able to get the most out of them, that they're going to be around for more than 3 years before we start having similar conversations like we're having with Stephen Kwan. And part of this is just in the moment. I'm looking for everything that's just going to tick me off and make me angry. And I'm going to find the frustration in everything. And maybe I need to zoom out a little bit more. Maybe I need this trip to Disney World with my family that's coming up later this week to maybe refresh some of the positivity. But right now, Zach, they don't have.
You tired of watching this Mickey Mouse baseball team?
They don't have any track record to show me that they're going to, even if they go trade for people, that the people that they bring in they're going to be difference makers, that they're going to be guys that you want to keep around for years and years. I don't know. It's what makes this. It's going to make the rest of this season extremely tough because no matter what they do, even in the moment, they might make a smart, like just parachuting in today, make a smart move today that might make sense, but it's going to be hard to find the positive considering everything that's brought us to this moment.
Yeah. So look, we talk on this show quite a bit about our experiences and the lens that we have to view things in, and you know how the subjectivity gets beaten out of you the longer you do this. And look, I yell and I scream and I rant, and I can maintain my level of objectivity because I know I have no control over what's happening on the field, and it doesn't affect my life. It affects the fans who read and listen and consume what I have to say and report on. And a very wise mentor, I guess, of mine put it really well years ago when he said, I want my readers to be happy. I want them to be enjoying life, right? And so that's why, like, when I sound impassioned, it's because I know my readers are pissed and my listeners are pissed. And that doesn't mean that you can avoid things like this. Like, I don't expect it to be Pollyanna and every season's going to be great and I'm going to write nothing but heartfelt features and everyone's going to love everything. But I think the reason you hear maybe the frustration in my voice is because this was avoidable. Like, again, it's not like this is the most shocking 10-game losing streak ever, or maybe more aptly put, this isn't the most shocking stinky team ever. There have been teams where I'm like, this team it cannot possibly fail, right? We've seen these teams, there have been Dodgers teams in recent years where I'm like the team this year, I'm like, how is that team not on a 120 win pace right now? There have been teams, the Mets went and the year Steve Cohen first took over and boosted their payroll up to new heights, and it looked like they had an all-star roster, and then they just kind of stunk. There have been Cleveland teams where I'm like, yeah, this team's, how about like 97? That team they were sleepwalking through the entire regular season, and then they turned it on in October. But like, they won 86 games. Like, there have been teams where I'm like really surprised that this team is not better. This isn't one of them. Like, maybe I didn't expect 15 runs in 10 games, but is anybody here just completely befuddled that this team is struggling based on how they've operated?
It was the other way around. It was befuddling when they kept winning.
Right.
Even times last year was befuddling because you didn't anticipate that.
And they've just had whatever the opposite of the Midas touch is. They've had that since at least November. And, the Luis Ortiz thing is like the cherry on the top, where it's like, look, there was no way for you to know about this. This isn't your fault, but it's kind of fitting. Like, this is the no good, terrible, horrible, bad year. And everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, and a lot of it's self-inflicted.
Well, that's the thing. If anybody, I hope, that listens to this show recognizes that I think we're really fair with this stuff. We really are. And if it was just a matter of really unfortunate injuries, which have happened, if it was only about really poor sequencing, which has happened at times, or just uncharacteristic errors in the field, on the base paths, but that's not really who they are, the thing that Stephen Vogt likes to say. Or if it is just this thing that happens, that how could the team have known if what is being alleged about Ortiz is true? How could they have known that? It didn't even happen yet. So this is even a bigger issue than just Ortiz. It's a bigger issue for baseball to kick around. But see, if those were the only things that are out of their control, or we recognize that people are imperfect and they're going to make mistakes at some point, I think we would remove that from our evaluation, or at least factor that in as best as we can on the back of the napkin math that we're trying to create for what this team actually is. But it's not just about that. And the team can't just point to bad luck and bad sequencing and unfortunate errors at the wrong times and just explain away where they're at today, because that doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't. What else is there to say?
Well, let's open it up. Let's open it up. What else is there to say? Let's ask some of our listeners that are here with us on a Monday morning. Jacqueline says, at this point, it's just sad to watch them throw away all the talent and momentum that they have built, and even points to the the Mets publicly saying how disappointed they are in their play. And as you alluded to earlier, how often does this team, they might say that they're disappointed, but it's never like a soul-crushing disappointment. It's like
Well, how about the social media team? That's like your favorite bit. They lose a game, they lose their 8th straight, and it's
not their
try
fault.
again tomorrow.
I have thoughts that I don't want to blast out publicly because I recognize people are put in this position that what are they supposed to do? Who's running social doesn't dictate whether they win or lose or how many runs they score. Does it add to my anger at the end of the day when I see some stupid phrase about we just gonna come back and get them tomorrow on to Detroit? Go back home. We'll start again. It's not helping. But then it shows you how unfair I'm being that then after Sunday they just tweet out the picture with nothing. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. Couldn't hold yourselves accountable by putting a little phrase in here. See, there's no winning for them. So that's why I don't want to get into this. I recognize I'm being unfair to the people that run the social because I'm mad in both situations. You tweet something, I'm mad. You don't tweet anything, I'm mad. I'm just going to be mad.
Yeah, I mean, they're all the social media. That's a thankless job, right? They're going through it. I know there was some creative content that they've had that, like, you have to read the room, right? And they can't put it out there because it just would not land the way they'd want it to land. And I get that too. Believe me, like there's some stories I've been sitting on that, you're waiting for the right moment to drop them so that they find the right audience at the right time. And then sometimes those never see the light of day.
Mm-hmm. Patrick points to plenty of off days are going to be available if he's given the Manzardo treatment. Speaking of Chase DeLauder. JG 710, call up the kids. Let's see what they got. Maybe even beyond the kids, like, I'm going to be back to the point where just give John Kensey Noel some at-bats. At least those are fun. at least there's a chance that I'm going to see a 500-foot home run. Just to give the guy everyday at-bats.
I mean, are we at the point where we're talking about, like, the conversation switches to what you want to see the rest of the season? Who you want to see?
Yeah, I think we're approaching that. As I just put up on the screen from Sam, you don't trade Jose. The only thing we have now is Jose setting all the franchise records and retiring as our GOAT. I don't care what we can get for him. They trade him, and I'm done. And then he adds to this. Only if he wants out, then it's a different story. And how many people would be like, okay, we kind of understand that. I don't think you have to worry about that. But this one comes from just Mr. Hat. Boyd is an all-star. We couldn't reach for a few more million instead of Paul Sewald. LOL.
Can we that Matt Boyd is like the perfect palate cleanser here. Got to catch up with him in Chicago. He is known to everybody around the league as the nicest human in baseball. And if you could count how many times this guy said the word grateful in 3 days when the Guardians were there, you'd need more fingers and toes. But really cool story. Just the fact that he's sitting on his couch rehabbing from Tommy John surgery while he's a free agent. He's throwing at a field outside of Seattle where his family lives, and like his dad is holding maybe a TrackMan device or something they had set up, or the iPad, and like he's rehabbing on his own, and he starts talking to teams, and Cleveland's interested, and he joins the Guardians, and they're having a blast. He wants to be part of it, and he is part of it, and he makes 8 great starts in the regular season and gets the ball 3 times in the playoffs, and everything goes great, and he parlays that into a 2-year deal, and it's just like, and he's pitching the best he's ever pitched, and now he's an all-star. His ERA is under 3, and it's like, what incredible, honestly, career turnaround for him. Just he was a league average or a little below with the Tigers for a long time, and he bounced around a little bit, and then he got hurt, and I don't know. I'd rather just talk about Matthew Boyd. What a good dude. And it's cool. His dad surprised him in 2001. He's 10 years old with tickets to the All-Star game at Safeco Field then. And that was the year Cal Ripken Jr. hit the home run his last All-Star game. And got to go to the home run derby, and he never thought now he's an all-star. And then he's got 4 kids, and his kids wrapped up their baseball season up in the Seattle area, and then they came and they live down the street from Wrigley Field this summer, and he can walk to the ballpark, and that dude's living the dream at 34 years old, and he's a first-time all-star, and that's one of those good things happening to good people, and and also I don't know, maybe you should have kept him around. They offered him a multi-year deal, but not for as much money as the Cubs gave him. And I will one other nugget, and I know this is, I don't know, can we share this segment with Locked On Cubs or something, or do they have the Glenn Allen Hill is Godcast? I don't know, but Boyd's grandfather was a diehard Cubs fan, and there were a lot of lean years there, and he got to see them win a World Series in 2016, obviously at Cleveland's expense. And then he passed in 2019. So Matthew Boyd, he has a family tie. I think his grandmother was a cousin of Bob Feller, I think, something like that. So he had ties to Cleveland. That was an extra bonus, cool reason for signing with the Guardians last year, and then obviously the ties to the Cubs. So there, I just wanted a tangent to divert our attention away from.
No, it's an amazing story, and I'm so happy for him. And I also think that it's absolutely ridiculous that we have to link Boyd and Seawald. Not because, look at their contributions. I'm saying that you should. This is where it comes down to ownership. You
Seawald
should be
plus Junis equals Boyd.
Sure, but what I'm going to say is, those two relievers, you should be able to operate independently of whether or not you have that. That should be. You can do that at any time. It should not be a have to choose between going to get more relief help, which I think was a smart choice. It might not have worked so far. This is where I'm going to try to be fair. There's some injury here. If he's been on the field and he's contributing as that extra 7th inning reliever, I see the thought process here, why you would want to go get another reliever in this situation. You're going to have injuries. You're going to protect yourself. You should be able to do that without having to remove actually one of the main pieces that you could go get. You should be able to, at any time, regardless of what your finances look like, go get a Paul Seawald and not have to choose between, well, we would love to toss a few more million at Matthew Boyd, but there's some injury risk here. What if he gets injured again? What if this or that? And we really need to also add to the bullpen, so we can't go get Boyd because we need the bullpen help. You should be able to go get a Seawald or a Junis without having to remove actually good, legitimate pieces from the mix here.
Yeah, I think so. I think ownership is to blame with what you're talking about, just for the lack of financial flexibility. And again, no one's asking them to spend $200 million. You can keep flying Southwest Sea Group if you want, but I think the issue is because some people will say, well, they didn't sign Boyd, and then a few days later they signed Bieber. Yeah, but they still spent the Boyd money on Seawald and Junis way late in the offseason when they just had that money lying around. So you could have had Boyd and Bieber if you really wanted to. And also, give them credit, they've done a really good job of finding relievers on the scrap heap who come in like Scott Atchison or Dan Otero or Jeff Manship. Nick Goody was a guy who the Yankees didn't have space for on their 40-man roster, and Cleveland went and traded for him, and he gave him a few really good years, right? So I think the issue is, you can find relievers of Junis and Seawald's caliber. Maybe not Seawald if he's the guy he was a few years ago, but also, is he the guy he was a few years ago? Without spending $11.5 million on those guys, and then still have money left over for Boyd and Bieber. And I see someone put in the chat and they say, Boyd, but the starting pitching isn't the problem. No, but you didn't address anything. They've had the anti-Midas touch here. And God forbid you have more starting pitching depth. And then maybe if you had Boyd and you have Bieber coming back, you could trade a starting pitcher for a bat. There are it's okay if you have too many good players in one area of your roster, especially when you don't have enough good players in another area.
Yeah, again, that's just one symptom of the overall larger problem here. Lucas says, forget Jose. Meisel, you are the GOAT. Also referencing about how you signed an autograph, apparently, at Guards Fest. You remember doing that?
I'm going to do another really cool tangent here. There was a couple who flew in for the series over the weekend from Southwest North Dakota. And all they wanted to do was meet one Tom Hamilton. And so they got pictures with Tom Hamilton and with Jim Rosenhaus. They had them autograph a sign that they had made of Hammy and Rosie, and their weekend and year was made, I think.
I can believe
more
it.
on that, more on them and that topic coming soon.
I declare nothing but pain. Burn, look at the Tigers. They had a fun season last year, and then they grabbed Torres and Canely, went and brought back Flaherty, who they traded away, taught their guys to hit in the cold. Are people able to do that? Are you able to hit in the cold? And what happens now is actually too hot. The ball's not going to travel because it's too hot.
Just wait till the weather warms up. No, not that warm.
And you know what? The Tigers struck out on all the things they wanted. Not all, but I mean, they had a lot of things they wanted to do and struck out on a lot of them, but they still found, okay, that didn't work. Let's go do this. It's not like that didn't work. That was our only plan. I guess we'll just bring it back and see what happens. No, they still went out and found places where they could spend the money that even at times people didn't want to take from them.
Yeah, I'm really I'm curious to see what they do at the deadline, just knowing Scooble is only under team control through next season. So they have a really good farm system. So everything is pointing toward them being ultra aggressive, and they should be.
Yeah, it's why we screamed last year about you need to take advantage, especially when you build the way the Guardians do and you know that you can't, for whatever reason, ever put 2 years together. You are swinging the pendulum into the way you want to be. So trade now. Load up now. But this is the point. They look at that 54% on the wall and say, that's what we got to shoot for. What if we put all our chips into this basket and we ruin what could potentially happen in 2027? Or you're still just in this position, still here today, still chasing that drought, still not winning a championship, now not winning the division. I mean, the lean years are still going to come even when you try to be good every single year.
Yes, but TJ, have you seen Chase DeLauder's on-base streak in Columbus? 31 games.
They're trolling
You really
us.
want to end that?
They are trolling us. Roshi, I agree. I think they need to pick a vision and stick with it. This retooling is just kicking the can down the road. They are very good at kicking the can down the road. We'll make that decision tomorrow. Trying to find a few more here before we get out of here. I didn't see this. My 2 cents slider even lost the mascot race on Guardians TV yesterday, so when it rains, it pours. Did you know that? Slider, what are we doing here? Gonna blame that on the broken leg all those years ago? It just still hasn't healed properly?
Of all the missteps this season, I think the number one was adding spicy mustard to the hot dog race.
Burn also, by the way, a Tigers fan that's listening, thanks for being here. Thanks for inflating the numbers. At times, the black magic faded. Did you notice the Tigers tweeted out is this the guards ball that we've been hearing about? And I was thinking, sure, I don't have a problem. You should have some fun at the expense of the Guardians. But also, a game like that, that's not the burn you think it is when it was a white knuckler. You're right down to the end. You barely beat this team that sucks right now. Maybe that's not the victory lap you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote this a week ago, but the guards ball thing is, I mean, they post that on the scoreboard every day still. But the definition of guards ball and the brand it is, and I keep saying that was last year. That was in 2022. That is not the 2025 team. And so when you say, "Oh, we're not playing like ourselves," or you're clinging to a version that no longer exists.
Addressed all the needs when they brought Will Wilson back up. I mean, is that the funniest, not funny, but funny thing you've seen in quite some time? They lose an outfielder and they bring Will Wilson back. I mean, what are they doing to this fan base? It feels like it's on point now because the trolling needs to continue. Mac feels like the organization needs to choose a lane, either play and develop youth or trade prospects for a big piece and contend. The team doesn't risk either. Again, they never want to take that big risk. And They have in the past, and we keep pointing, well, they did it with Andrew Miller, and we're almost a decade away from that. And you can recall the times that it happened. Remember when they traded for Ubaldo 15 years ago? I shouldn't be able to recall them as quickly as I can because they stand out because the team never does these things. I've said this before. I feel like there are times where, as a fan, you recognize you're going to be bad. That's the plan. We're going to be bad. We're rebuilding. We're retooling, whatever. But does it make it any easier? I can only answer for myself. I think the answer is yes, but maybe people feel differently. If your team takes a legitimate shot at 3 or 4 years, and I mean a legitimate shot, not half in, half out. Like in 16, they build up. 17, they went for it. All the credit is due for them for going for it. And then in 18, it's like, oh, pull back a little bit. Not quite as in. And then in 19, really pull back. If your team like legitimately went for it for 4 years, spend some money, traded prospects, and then you knew at the end of this, the system's going to be a little bare, going to have to cut back financially. But they're taking 4 or 5 real good bites at this to really build up and try to win. Would that help excuse when you realize you need to cut back or you need to spend some more time refilling the farm system? Because I feel like, again, fans are smart. Fans can see what the direction is. And if they know that the lean years are on the horizon, but you gave it your best shot, you legitimately tried as best as you could, and you didn't win, I feel like that is semi-excusable. A lot more than just being half in, half out all the damn time.
Yeah, it's supposed to be cyclical, right? I think if you believe your front office is as good as they are, and ownership clearly believes that. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I don't think this front office has ability, right? Like their track record is good. They're in it right now. It's rough right now. They've made a lot of questionable decisions, and they've made a lot of, or there are a lot of things they haven't done that deserve criticism, whether it's promotions or trades or signings, whatever. But they have a reputation of being among the best in the league, and that's from people across the industry. It's not from us. It's not from fans. So if that's the case, then shouldn't you trust their ability to build it back up? If you give yourself a 3, 4, 5 year window where you're going to be uber competitive, and then you're really going to pull back. Those are the years where you're going to save money. Don't you trust this front office to do a good enough job of rebuilding that team? So then why not try that?
They will always say that it's because they don't think they can recover from that. They don't think they can recover from the amount of apathy. But I would argue there are times, and this doesn't apply now, and there's not every time that a team has totally torn down. I'm not even saying you have to go full White Sox or Cubs before they win the championship, or Houston Astros, right? They really had some lean years. They don't think they can survive that. That's always been their point. They think fans will stay away forever, and they'll never be able to recover financially or whatever. I think fans are smarter than that. I think fans can see through your really failed attempts to create a semi-pseudo contender, and that's been reflected some years where they've had good records and people don't come down to the ballpark. And then you have years like last year where people think that this team is good, and then they actually contribute their dollars to go down there and watch it, and they want to be part of it. And then you don't reward them. Like this just creates this cycle where fans are going to see that you're not going to reward them for coming out and showcasing their passion and their joy. Like it's mind-blowing, and it's very frustrating.
The 22 and 24 seasons when they won the division and won a playoff series, they went into those years not thinking that the team was going to be great, and then things broke their way. So yeah, I think, as you said, the fans are smart, and they understand what the expectations are too. It's not like you entered those 2 seasons and you had sellouts in April because fans were so jazzed about the team. I think if you tried a traditional strategy of building up and then tearing down, I don't know. There were times in the pre-Terry Francona era where I agreed with that. Where it was really lean, where in 2011 they were like flirting with maybe contending, and yeah, in 2012 and remember Chris Perez ranting about the fans not showing up, but like everybody knew that team, that roster wasn't all that good, and like the best you were hoping for was to just be in contention in September. How many times have you heard playing meaningful games in September, right? So like I don't know. Like I build an actual roster that people can get excited about, and I think people would feel differently.
The amazing thing is, if you committed more to some of the youth and really committed to that for the rest of the year, and no more Santana, no more Lane Thomas, although the injuries might just dictate that period. No more Will Wilson, no more. You actually committed to guys that are really part of your future, the excitement level would tick up again. It wouldn't rebound here. I'm not suggesting that, but it certainly would make these games a lot more fun to watch, as opposed to the lineup that Sam says he wants to see: Quan, Meisel, Ramirez, Zuppi. You're hitting second.
You would not hit me between.
You're hitting second.
Those two guys. No.
And then if my 2 cents wants to know if you can bunt, to which Bree replies, in this lineup, you let Meisel swing away.
I could never really hit. I could draw walks, but that's just because I didn't want to swing.
Little passive walks. Yeah, we've seen that before. Well, thank you for being here, hanging out with us, everybody. Did this live stream because just needed to get this out more quickly to everybody. And of course, the full thing will be available here on YouTube. You can just go back at any time you want. And then the full audio will be available later in all the normal places. Come find us later this week at Patreon. Where do you want me to broadcast from at Disney World, if the family doesn't kill me for throwing on the headset while it happens?
At the end of Eating Around the World at Epcot, please. And hey, it's not just us. My 8-year-old daughter is screaming about the Guardians right now, too.
It's justified, isn't it? Bye, everybody.